Hello and welcome to another episode of the Help Us Here podcast, brought to you by the Beyond Compulsion Academy. In this episode, we're going to talk about New Year's resolutions. This should hopefully be going out around the start of the new year in 2025. Hope you've had a good Christmas. Hope you're looking forward to more information and content on how to actually overcome porn addiction for good. And we're going to start off by comparing porn addiction to food addiction a little bit. Mary, have you got a quote there that you can share about New Year's resolutions?
Yeah. Yeah, this was compulsive eater, remember letter. And she says, remember last month, reading your journals for the last 20 years and seeing the exact same words on the January 1 page. This year, I'm going to lose weight. Remember how the resolution never changed? Remember how neither did you. And you think about how many how those exact words could apply with porn addiction, right?
Mm,
First of the year, New Year's Eve resolution, I'm going to stop looking at porn. If someone would journal that, it could probably go on for 20 years. We've definitely had clients that have been struggling with it for 20 years or more.
mm.
Average is like more like probably about 15 years, I would say, something like that. But yeah, it could definitely be, always making the same resolution. But the thing is what needs to change, not the resolution doesn't need to change. What needs to change is the methodology,
Mm.
because if you don't make permanent changes, of course, you're going to relapse to your addiction and you're going to be right back there next year making another resolution to stop. So,
Yeah,
yeah. Mhm.
exactly. And the thing is, people, when they're overcoming a porn addiction, they're often focusing on the results. And so they have this hyper focus on the amount of days, the streak, how many months can I go without porn? And that's the focus, that's the goal, that's the target. But that completely it's got nothing to do with the actual process. Like it's got nothing to do with actually overcoming porn because you're now in the future. If you're on the 1st of January thinking, all right, this is it, this is the year I overcome porn for good, I'm never going to look at porn again. I mean, what actual work is going on there? Because number one, you're motivated, so you clearly don't have an urge. Like in your mind, in that moment, you're probably excited about the future. You're probably excited about the life that you could have beyond a porn addiction. But what actually happens in addiction is you're thinking rationally, you're feeling okay for a little while, and then you have some urges, you have the compulsive desire, you feel terrible, and let's be honest, it just goes round and round and round. And no matter how much you avoid it, distract yourself, substitute it, that compulsive desire sticks about.
Yeah. Well, you're jacking up your willpower. That's what you're doing. New Year's resolution. I'm not going to do this anymore. That's what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to engage with the porn. I'm jacking up the willpower, which has an absolute time limit on it. Has a time limit on it. It creates feelings of deprivation. I'm just not going to do this. And again, throwing a bunch of crap at it. Like, okay, to try to not just face the fact that willpower is not going to get you through. It's not going to work. It's never worked before. So now I'm going to throw, meditation, working out, healthy eating, whatever, lifestyle changes. I'm going to throw all this crap at it, right? And hope that's going to like, help my willpower. Like, what's it going to do? It's not, it's not changing the situation. It's just more holding out until you're not holding out anymore, until you're
Mm.
like, you can't because you're just willing it out. You're not making permanent changes. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And even if you think that you're going to maybe go into the new year and you're going to get better at dealing with discomfort, unless you're actually changing the thought patterns as well, that discomfort is just going to continue and continue and continue. So it's really about changing the way that you think whilst also experiencing the discomfort. That's how we're going to get the permanent mental freedom where we change those neural pathways. Because yes, you can meditate and maybe deal with that discomfort for a little while, but then it's just going to keep on coming back and back and back. And so that's why we change those fundamental thought patterns. As I've said before, I did meditation for like an hour every day. I've done cold showers for probably like 2 or 3 years, kind of got into a good routine of hitting the gym and things like that. And not perfect, but I've learned how to deal with discomfort. I'm all right with that. And that's an integral part really of overcoming the addiction. But it's like you don't have to feel uncomfortable for the rest of your life. Like it is
Yeah.
possible to overcome this problem without always having that discomfort if we change the thought patterns.
You know, I think we should talk more about like discomfort. We talk about discomfort all the time, but what do we actually mean by that? The thing is the discomfort is coming from having addicted neural pathways. If you didn't want to do it and were trying not to do it, you wouldn't be uncomfortable. So we're trying to deal with the discomfort without changing what causes the discomfort. Right? It's
Mm,
just like keep on, okay, I'm uncomfortable, so I'm going to do all these things to try to make myself feel more comfortable
mm,
when the discomfort is coming from wanting to do something that you're trying not to do.
mm,
So it's once you are able to make permanent change in the neural pathways and deal with what is causing the discomfort, then you don't have to keep trying to find a way to not feel uncomfortable because you
mm.
don't feel uncomfortable. You don't have discomfort to begin with. And we've talked, about getting people to really understand the problem based on that Einstein quote about spending 55, if you have an hour, spend 55 minutes understanding the problem and 5 minutes solving it. Well, if you have the understanding that addicted neural pathways, you feel uncomfortable and then you give into it and you get very temporary relief from the discomfort. You got to understand that that's how the addicted neural pathways work, and then be able to, we can teach you how to change that and how to deal with that discomfort so you can see it all the way through and not have to act on it. But you got to have that baseline understanding of what you're dealing with rather than, oh, I'm just uncomfortable, so I'm going to go out there and find a way to deal with my uncomfortable feelings. Well, if you don't have an addiction, yeah, there's uncomfortable shit happens in life, right? We all can deal with that, and then go take a hot bath or go for a walk or whatever else you're going to do to deal with uncomfortable feelings. But dealing with addicted neural pathways, that's a whole different animal. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think what happened for me is, growing up, obviously got into porn at 12 years old and developed those addictive neural pathways where basically in my mind, any discomfort came along, I'd go straight to porn. So let's say I'm really tired, straight to porn. I'm hungover, straight to porn. Dehydrated, straight to porn. Feeling like a failure, straight to porn. Feeling lonely, straight to porn. And on and on and on and on and on. But essentially, what I had is addictive neural pathways. I felt discomfort. I wanted to watch porn, but it took me a long, long time to actually realize that most of that discomfort on some level was coming from being in the addiction anyway. Once I learned how to take control of my mind, I didn't have all that discomfort and I felt in control of myself, and the child self started to trust me as well. So I didn't have this like screaming child like acting and thinking and feeling irrational ways. Mary, did you want to say something?
yeah. It just goes to show that you say, okay, I feel this, I go to porn. I feel that, I go to porn. I feel this discomfort, I go to porn. Right? It just goes to show it's the addicted neural pathways, because if you weren't experiencing porn addiction, you were an alcoholic. I feel this discomfort, I go to booze. I feel this discomfort, I go to booze. I feel this discomfort, I go to booze. Food addict. I feel this discomfort, I go to food. Right? It's the addicted neural pathways, and whatever you have taught yourself relieves that discomfort for a second when you give in to that addiction. So whatever it is, you feel that little bit of relief from the discomfort. So it's obviously addicted neural pathways. It's not some, you know, food problem or porn problem, or, it's the addicted neural pathways, which can change. And yeah,
Yeah,
does that make sense?
exactly. Yeah, and
Yeah.
talking about booze there, just because it's January. So a
Mhm.
lot of people are going to be doing what's called dry January. I don't know if you have
Yes.
it over in the States. Do you
Yep,
have?
we do.
Yeah, yeah. So like most of my friends are actually doing this, to be honest. I've not spoke about the Beyond Compulsion method to all of my friends, and a lot of them will be abstaining from alcohol. A lot of them do drink a lot of alcohol, and even maybe some family members might be doing this as well. And the thing is, like, yeah, you may be able to do dry January. You may be able to get through with willpower. But one, you're not going to be feeling that good whilst doing it. Two, February comes around and you're going and getting very drunk. And the main thing is, during that time of abstinence, perhaps, if you do manage to actually go through dry January, you're not actually going to really change those thought patterns. You're not going to change those addictive neural pathways if you are
Yeah.
trying to overcome an alcohol like alcoholism. If you are trying to overcome that, second of all, you're actually going to create addiction, and that might be what you wanted to say there, Mary.
Exactly. I was going to say, not only are you not solving the problem, if you didn't have one going into dry January, you might have one coming out. Because now it's like, I'm not going to do it. I can't drink because it's dry January. Where do you think the obesity epidemics come from, right? Now we can have an alcoholism epidemic too, because now we're, like these, everyone goes on their diet. I mean, you'll see the ads just like insanity for like, now every diet out there is, you see tons and tons and tons and tons of ads now for the latest fad diet, right? And all that shit has caused this obesity epidemic, right? Because they're going to hold out, they're not going to, not going to, not going to, and then they do, right? Intermittently reinforcing. Now, the same thing's going to happen with alcohol.
Mm,
Leave it alone, people. Just like drink reasonably or whatever.
yeah,
And it's,
literally.
yeah, because they're going to hold out, hold out, hold out. And like you say, here comes February. Now they're sloshed, right? And now
Yeah.
they're creating a compulsive, addictive relationship with alcohol that they might not have had going into dry January.
Yeah, exactly. And just to
Yeah.
kind of like compare the two stances. So let's say you've got me who I've never had a problem with alcohol. I never will. And January approaches. Let's say I'm in a certain situation where someone offers me a beer. In that moment, I fancy a beer. I say, yeah, I'll have a beer. Okay, sorted. And go on with my life. Don't think about it again. So that'll be me in that situation in January. If I fancy a beer at a certain time, I'll have one. I don't really care either way. Now, one of my mates, let's say they get offered a beer in January and they're doing this dry January, they'll say no, but they'll really want to have that beer. And they'll feel this is a really key part is that when they have that desire to have that beer, they'll feel that they can't have that beer. And that's going to create feelings of deprivation, which they're going to want to get out of. Now, their desire for that beer is probably going to be way more than my desire for that beer. I don't really give a shit whether I have it or not, whereas they'll really, really want it. So now February comes about and someone asks them, do you want this beer? They're going to be so desperate to get out of those feelings of deprivation. They're going to drink that beer. And then, a few weeks, months go down the line, and there's a possibility that they're going to create these addictive neural pathways. Now, I really pray and hope that they don't. But that is basically how addiction takes place. It's one of the main ways people get addicted is they're trying to stop something. They feel terrible while trying to stop it. They've not been taught how to stop that behavior from a good place, thinking it through rationally. And then they intermittently reinforce the addictive neural pathways by ending up actually engaging in that behavior again in the future. That's why no fat streaks don't work. People try and stop porn doing a no fat streak, they end up engaging, they're back in the addiction, and then they end up into this like crazy tolerance cycle where they're binging and edging and looking at this extreme content and completely fucked up mentally because they've not been taught how to overcome the problem correctly. So, hopefully in 2025 we can get the beyond compulsion method out there to more people and help them learn how to overcome this problem correctly. But I think one of the key things is just that all of this is going on in the mind. It's the thought processes. We can change those through rational
Yeah.
emotive therapy and connecting to the desire correctly, thinking it through, having a choice. And that's how we actually change those neural pathways. And I think that was all I was going to say. I don't think there was any main point to make there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing is we've got, I mean, I would like to encourage people, if you are feeling like you have a compulsive or addictive behavior, get in contact. Don't go on another diet. Don't go on another, dry January. No, not November. Screen-free September. We're going to have one for every month of the year. Is it going to come up with and make it like cute or whatever? The more you go, the more you participate in these kinds of things, the more likely you are to either develop a compulsive behavior or addictive behavior or make the one that you've got worse. Because
Mm,
obviously, if you are participating in one of these things, you must feel on some level that you have some sort of problem. Because, like, I would never think, oh, I'm not going to drink all of January. that would never cross my mind
Mm,
because I'm not abusing alcohol. I'm not feeling like it would never cross my mind. It would never cross my mind to think, oh, I'm going to go on a, Weight Watchers or a 60-day diet plan or whatever for the new year. Would never cross my mind. But I mean, back when I was a nicotine addict, before I found this method 30 years ago, I would be like, oh, New Year's, going to stop smoking on New Year's because I had a problem with it. It was
mm,
causing me all kinds of problems and I couldn't stop doing it. But otherwise, I wouldn't think of that kind of thing. So if
yeah,
you are thinking of stopping something for the new year, really strongly encourage. Don't participate in some kind of a challenge. You're going
yeah,
to see 6 million challenges on social media. Now, every time you participate in one of those and you're not making any permanent change because you're just willing it out, it's going to get worse.
mm,
Right? Look at
100%.
the girl in my book. 20 years of the same entry in her journal on New Year's Day.
Literally, literally, that's it. And it's really nice for me because I know with absolute certainty, I mean, it's what, 28th of December as we record this, it'll probably go out in the new year or just before. And I know with absolute certainty that, whether it goes out next week, the week after, tomorrow, whenever we post this podcast, my process, my system, the way I deal with compulsive desire will be absolutely identical every single one of those days. I don't care whether this
Yeah.
goes out in 2025 or 2030, because the way in which you deal with compulsive desire is you think it through in a rational way. And once you know how to deal with that, you've got that for the rest of your life. You don't need to worry or think about how do you solve this problem. It's
Yeah,
sorted,
and
it's done.
recognize it. And how much desire, I mean, when you think about compulsion, you think compelling, right? You get obsessed, you're compelled. How much desire now, you ever even really experience that is really compelling?
Mm,
I don't really.
no.
I just don't feel that. But there's wanting, and then there's reasonable engagement at reasonable times with things that might be potentially compulsive, but you don't have to
Mm,
worry about that.
yeah.
I think way back when I did do this program for nicotine addiction, um, people will tell you, "Oh, you stop smoking, you're going to gain weight."
Mm,
Well, no, that's not true. Because if you try to substitute food for nicotine, yeah, you're going to gain a lot of weight. You're probably going to relapse to smoking. But we were taught smoking food. We had a follow-up class called Smoking Food Detour to Disaster, right? So we knew that how to deal with the compelling desire for nicotine. So we didn't try to give it food, right? So I didn't have to go through, you know, becoming a food compulsive because I
mm,
stopped smoking because I was taught exactly how to deal with that. So, and it's bled into every other area of my life as well. So if I feel like I want to do something that changes the way I feel, I definitely know the difference,
yeah.
between something that is a compelling desire that could potentially be a problem and something that's just, oh yeah, we're human. We want to change the way we feel for sure,
Yeah,
that
exactly.
can
That's
have
it.
that
That's
pleasure
it.
or
And
whatever.
so, yeah, I think people are going to want to change the way they feel. That's normal, that's natural. But what's really key is to know how to be in control of yourself. And to do that and be in control of yourself moment by moment, you always have a choice. And this isn't about like not doing anything at all, which maybe is like deemed by the rest of society as a bad habit. So it's not about like never drinking coffee. It's not about never going on your phone or doing some stupid like dopamine detox or some other bullshit. It's about just knowing moment by moment, you have a choice. You are in control of yourself and you can make choices for yourself. You do
Yeah,
know what is reasonable. You do know what's not reasonable. And so it's about being
yeah,
empowered to make choices moment by
yeah.
moment.
It's
Yeah.
about being empowered. It's not like this extreme thing. Like I was working with one of the porn guys, and he we were doing a Zoom call or a
Mm.
FaceTime call, and he says, "Do you mind if I eat my lunch?" Well, he said, "I only have enough time." Well, during the call, I said, "No, hey, have at it, eat your lunch." And then he ate a sandwich or something. He says, "Oh, now you're going to hate this." I'm like, hey, what? And because he's going to have a cookie with his lunch, with his sandwich. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like I think you've actually totally missed the boat,
Mm,
missed the point. Like somehow I'm anti cookies, eat healthy or some shit. It's like, no, you just don't even understand at all where I'm coming from. It's like, what the hell is wrong with having a cookie with your lunch? It's like,
yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
but
But it's really
it's just
refreshing.
reasonable and not having to think about
Yeah.
it and not being an obsession or like I can't have a cookie because blah blah whatever. It's
Mm,
like it's like you say all the time, being in control of your actions at any given moment, and if something's a problem.
yeah, yeah,
If you're
that's
trying
it.
to stop drinking for January,
Mm,
you might look at it in that situation,
yeah,
before you go on dry January, because that will not serve you in any way,
yeah,
shape, or form.
exactly. It's weird though because the rest of society, in the majority anyway, hopefully not you listening to this, but most people will think that going to McDonald's and maybe eating a burger, having some fries, and having a McFlurry or whatever it's called, having that, people would probably think that is way, 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 way more unhealthy than doing dry January. Most people would think dry
Yeah,
January, like this is amazing, like well
it's
done, like
healthy.
you're so courageous. And it's like,
Yeah,
wait, actually, what's more reasonable though? Like going and having a McDonald's once every however long, I don't care really. Just, eating some food now and then that is bad for you. Like, what's worse? Like doing that now and then or doing a challenge, which is all based on you not being in control of yourself. I mean,
yeah,
it's crazy how the world has this different perception of things. And I remember like only a few months into working with you, it did it did surprise me, if I'm honest, because I wasn't very aware of reasonable engagement at reasonable times at that point, a bit like the person with the cookie. It did surprise me at first when you did say to me, like, yeah, I have junk food sometimes. Like, if I'm busy, if I'm in a rush, if it's
yeah.
convenient, then sometimes I go and have some food.
Fast food.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm not condoning having McDonald's or eating that food. I'm
Yeah,
not saying that that's like good or bad. I don't really care. The point is, it doesn't matter. Like, reasonable engagement at reasonable times, and you will know what is reasonable. You will know
yeah,
what's not reasonable. If you're going every day, then obviously it's
yeah.
unreasonable. Like, you
And
will
you
know.
won't even have to question what's reasonable. It's just you just know.
Mm,
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, McDonald's is shitty food,
yeah,
but
it is.
the my old friend Patty used to say your body will make cells out of anything. And
Mm,
so if you're making a choice about McDonald's based on like the effect it has on your physical body, that's understandable. But if it's like, oh, I can't eat fast food because fast food's gonna make me gain weight or whatever, no, fast food's not gonna make you gain weight if you eat a reasonable amount of it. It might not make the most healthy cells in your body, but it's not the problem. It's not why
yeah,
people don't gain weight because they eat unhealthy food.
yeah. I
People gain
mean,
weight because they eat compulsively and they eat far, far, far beyond what they need because they
exactly.
feel compelled. That's how it works.
Just a final point on that, and
Yeah.
I don't know whether this is true. You can Google it and search and see whether it's true or not. But I did hear that Warren Buffett, he's like genuinely one of the richest people in the world and has reached the age of 94. He apparently eats McDonald's like every day, and it's like, okay, yeah, that is unhealthy. But apparently he's been doing that for like 6 decades, and the guy's still around, and he's still
Yeah.
cognitively like functioning really well. The guy's clearly very smart. He's made a shit ton of money and he does a lot of philanthropy as well. And it's like, yeah, like there's all this kind of preaching from these like YouTubers and Instagram influencers and productivity people out there who are like, you have to optimize every single function of your body to maximize your success. And then you have like
Uh,
one of the richest people in the world who's like having McDonald's every day and doesn't really give a fuck. And it's like,
yeah,
okay,
right.
I think it's a bit
It's
skewed.
like everything is extreme. It's like literally things are so extreme. I just want to pound my head against the wall. It's
Yeah.
just the extreme mentality is like, yeah. Yeah, I remember when we were kids, we'd go to McDonald's.
Mm,
McDonald's it was not really a big deal. It was like kind of a treat, and the French fries and whatever. I mean, if I'm gonna eat fast food, that's one of the ones I'll choose. I'll get some fries and a fillet of fish. Yeah, is it healthy food? No, but who
Yeah,
fucking cares? You know, I mean,
exactly.
it's not like well, like Warren Buffett, not living on it, but good for him, you know. It's like I feel like we have to deal with food so often, which I just told you earlier. I got to go to the
Mm,
grocery store again. It's like we have to deal with it so often. Like I don't want to give it any more thought than I got to go to the grocery store, get some food in my house, you know?
mm,
So, but this constant obsession that it's all people talk about and with the healthy diets and all this stuff is like, I find it incredibly tedious and boring, you know? I
yeah.
just really, people want to talk about the food. I'm like, can we talk about something else, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, well, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you found this podcast useful. If you are going into 2025 with a lot of motivation, using a willpower stance, hopefully you'll stick around, listen to more of our podcasts, and we can
Yeah.
help you think in a different way so you can feel a different way and then act in a different way and overcome this problem for good throughout 2025. We also have the compulsion test. If you want to find out whether you are addicted to pornography, there will be a link in the description. You'll get a score out of 100. Thanks so much again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks, Mary. Bye bye.
Thank you.